At exactly 2:41 hours on April the 17th, 2026, every air raid siren network from Kharkiv to Odesa erupted simultaneously. The Ukrainian Air Force's early warning network, running 24 hours a day across 12 radar stations linked by a hardened fiber optic backbone, was registering something it had never seen before. Not since the war began in February 2022, not during the infamous November 2022 blackout strikes, not during any mass attack in 3 years of full-scale war. Over 700 Shahed 238 and Italmas loitering munitions were inbound, launched from at least 14 separate Russian positions across Bryansk, Kursk, Belgorod, and the Black Sea, all timed to arrive at Ukrainian population centers within a 40-minute impact window. This was not a strike package. This was a saturation extinction event, a deliberate attempt to overwhelm Ukraine's entire integrated air defense architecture in a single operational surge, collapse the power grid from west to east, and create the blackout conditions that would support the ground offensive Russia had been massing along the Sumy corridor for 6 weeks. The drone blitz of April 17, 2026, was the opening salvo of what Russian General Staff documents later leaked to Ukrainian intelligence would describe as Operation Winter Fang II, Russia's most ambitious strategic offensive since the failed Kiev push of March 2022. And the next 11 days that followed would expose the world to the most dangerous military escalation in Europe since the Cuban Missile Crisis. But before we show you exactly how Ukraine stopped this campaign from succeeding, and how Kyiv reached 2,000 kilometers inside Russia in response, you need to understand why this week was different. Why this was not just another exchange of strikes, this was Russia testing whether the West would blink. The strategic context begins not in April, but 6 weeks earlier, when Moscow's General Staff completed its assessment of 2 simultaneous developments that had fundamentally altered the operational calculus. First, the Iran War. The U.S.-Israeli campaign against Tehran, which had been raging since February 28th, had consumed more than 60% of the United States' deployable air and naval assets, relocating 3 carrier strike groups and 5 heavy bomber squadrons to the Middle Eastern theater. Russian satellite reconnaissance imagery confirmed by late March 2026 that the prepositioned NATO materiel depot at Rzeszów, Poland, the critical logistics hub for Ukrainian resupply, had seen a 34% reduction in heavy cargo traffic. Russia's conclusion: Washington was stretched. The window was open. Second, the Sumy corridor. Russian engineers had spent 5 months constructing a covert logistics road network through the dense forests of Bryansk Oblast, invisible to NATO overhead reconnaissance because it ran beneath a triple canopy tree cover designed to defeat thermal imaging. By April 1st, 2026, Russian 44th Army Corps had quietly forward deployed 22 battalion tactical groups, approximately 18,000 soldiers, within 12 kilometers of the Ukrainian border northeast of Sumy city. Their objective? Cross the border, cut the E40 highway, Ukraine's primary northeastern supply artery, and place Russian fire control assets within strike range of Sumy city itself, home to 250,000 civilians and a critical Ukrainian rail junction. The drone blitz on April 17th was the preparation phase. The ground assault was scheduled to follow within 72 hours. At 02:41 hours, the first wave of 340 Shahed 238 jet-propelled loitering munitions crossed Ukrainian airspace simultaneously from 3 vectors: northeast, east, and south from the Black Sea. The coordination was precise. Each wave was timed to arrive over its target city at the same moment, designed to force Ukraine's mobile Iris-T SLM batteries and Patriot PAC-3 interceptors to engage multiple simultaneous raids, exhausting their magazine loads before the second and third waves arrived. At the same time, 6 Russian Su-34 fullback strike aircraft, operating under escort by Su-35S fighters from Milarovo Air Base, launched 12 Kh-101 cruise missiles from standoff range over the Caspian Sea. These were not aimed at power infrastructure. They were aimed at 3 specific targets: the Hawk Phase 3 battery south of Kharkiv, the S-300V4 radar installation at Poltava, and the AN/TPY-2 terminal high-altitude radar node near Dnipro that served as the backbone of Ukraine's northeastern air picture. Russia's opening move was not to kill civilians. It was to blind Ukraine's eyes before the land offensive began. At 2:53 hours, the Ukrainian Joint Operations Command issued flash priority orders to 17 mobile air defense units. 2 MIM-104F Patriot PAC-3MSE batteries, positioned as a strategic reserve near Kyiv, were immediately redeployed eastward under radio silence, transiting at night on civilian road networks to new firing positions northeast of Sumy. The Ukrainian Air Force simultaneously scrambled 8 MiG-29 Mu-2 interceptors equipped with U.S.-supplied AIM-120D AMR AAM missiles to create a forward engagement line that would force the Shaheds to climb altitude, exposing them to the Patriot radar's optimal engagement envelope. The battle unfolded across 600 kilometers of Ukrainian airspace simultaneously. At 03:14 hours, the first Patriot battery engaged. 7 Kh-101 cruise missiles were intercepted in the airspace north of Dnipro before they could reach their radar targets. 2 got through. The AN/TPY-2 radar station near Dnipro took a direct hit at 03:19 hours, the explosion visible 40 kilometers away, and immediately went dark. For the next 22 minutes, a 240-kilometer gap existed in Ukraine's radar coverage over the northeast. Russia's generals were watching the kill chain indicators in real time from the National Defense Management Center in Moscow. The radar went dark at 03:19 hours. The ground assault order was preloaded, waiting for this exact moment. At 03:22 hours, 44th Army Corps began crossing the Ukrainian border along a 27-kilometer front. What happened in the next 47 minutes would define the entire campaign. Ukraine's military intelligence, HUR, had anticipated this moment with a level of operational foresight that would later be called one of the most sophisticated defensive intelligence operations in modern warfare history. Ukrainian Special Operations units had spent 3 weeks covertly deploying a network of 114 unattended ground sensors, seismic, acoustic, and thermal, along every viable crossing route in the Bryansk-Sumy forest network. These sensors were not connected to radio frequencies that Russian EW assets could detect. They transmitted through a hardened short-burst satellite uplink to a concealed operations center 40 kilometers behind the line. The moment Russian armored columns began moving at 03:22 hours, the Ukrainian 10th Mountain Assault Brigade, pre-positioned in hardened forest positions with full knowledge of exactly which routes Russia would use, opened fire simultaneously from 4 axes. Ukrainian FPV drone teams operating in the tree lines launched 200 kamikaze drones in the first 90 seconds, targeting the lead vehicles in each column, creating burning roadblocks that stopped the momentum of the entire armored formation. Russian tank crews trained for open-step armored maneuver found themselves in narrow forest lanes where the burned wreckage of their own lead vehicles formed an impassable steel wall. Artillery pre-registered on every crossing node fired for effect within 3 minutes of the crossing. At the same time, simultaneously, Ukrainian M270 MLRS units firing ATACMS Block 1 AGPS/INS missiles struck the logistics hub at Konotop Junction, the single node through which all of Russian 44th Corps' fuel, ammunition, and medical supply was routing. 8 strikes in 6 minutes. 14 fuel trucks detonated in a fireball that rose 300 meters. The Corps' combat sustainability window, already calculated at 96 hours based on pre-positioned stocks, collapsed to an estimated 31 hours. The ground assault stalled, but Russia's drone campaign continued relentlessly through the night. By 05:30 hours, 58 civilians had been killed across Kharkiv, Sumy, Zaporizhzhia, and Odesa oblasts, the deadliest single night of the conflict in 2026. 3 residential high-rises in Kharkiv were struck. A maternity hospital in Sumy city was destroyed by a Shahed that penetrated through the gap in air defense created by the AN/TPY-2 radar loss. 26 children were among the dead. Ukrainian President Zelensky appeared on national television at 6:45 hours, his face drawn, speaking in clipped sentences that betrayed no emotion. He announced one phrase that would echo across every Western capital within the hour. Ukraine will respond where it hurts. There are no limits on distance. The intelligence community in Washington, London, Warsaw, and Berlin understood what that meant. At 22:17 hours on April 19th, 44 hours after the Russian assault began, Ukraine responded. 3 Ukrainian Air Force Su-24M strike aircraft, modified to carry the extended range variant of the Storm Shadow/Scalp EG cruise missile, took off from a forward operating base in central Ukraine under total radio silence. Their flight path was designed around a specific atmospheric corridor, a zone of high atmospheric pressure that creates a natural electromagnetic absorption layer above 22,000 feet, sharply reducing the radar cross-section of low observable cruise missiles to Russian S-400 radar systems. Their target, the Ufa Oil Refinery in Bashkortostan, Republic of Russia, 1,980 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The deepest confirmed Ukrainian strike of the entire war. At 0:44 hours on April the 20th, 5 Storm Shadow missiles arrived over Ufa simultaneously. Russian air defense in the region, not calibrated for threats from the southwest, a vector that had never been used in 3 years of war, failed to engage in time. 3 missiles struck the primary distillation column. 1 struck the pump station feeding the southwestern military district pipeline. 1 struck the transformer substation powering the refinery's processing systems. The fire burned for 31 hours. Ufa processes 9.4 million tons of aviation and diesel fuel annually, the primary feedstock for Russian Air Force operations from Milarovo, Morozovsk, and Primorsko-Akhtarsk air bases, the exact bases that had launched the Su-34 strike packages against Ukrainian air defense on April the 17th. Ukraine had not struck back at the soldiers who crossed the border. Ukraine had struck the fuel that kept those soldiers' vehicles moving. Within 6 hours of the Ufa strike, crude oil futures on the ICE-Brent exchange surged 4.2%, markets interpreting the strike as evidence that the Ukraine war was entering a new phase of strategic deep attack that posed existential risk to Russian energy infrastructure. Russian state media went into immediate propaganda overdrive, claiming the missiles had struck a civilian facility and warning of proportional escalation against critical Western infrastructure. At 1400 hours on April the 20th, Russian President Putin convened an emergency session of the Security Council. The outcome of that meeting was classified, but within 18 hours, Russia's strategic missile forces, the RVSN, quietly moved 2 RS-24 Yars road-mobile ICBM launchers from their garrisons in Tatishchevo and Kozelsk to hardened forest dispersal positions. An action that had one purpose: signaling. Russia was not preparing a nuclear strike. Russia was communicating to NATO and Washington, whose satellites photographed the launcher movements within 90 minutes, that the Ufa strike had crossed a threshold in Moscow's internal calculus. In Brussels, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte called an emergency session of the North Atlantic Council at 9 o'clock hours on April the 21st. Former Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin told European media bluntly, "Europe cannot rule out a war with Russia." She was not speaking in hypotheticals. As of April the 23rd, 2026, the situation on the Ukrainian front remains at its most volatile since the first days of the February 2022 invasion. The Russian 44th Corps offensive in the Sumy corridor has been tactically repelled, but not destroyed. Russian forces retain the logistics infrastructure, the forward positions, and the operational intent to try again. The drone campaign continues nightly. Ukraine's air defense, despite heroic performance, is consuming Patriot interceptors at a rate that NATO industrial output cannot sustain indefinitely. The Ufa strike changed the equation. Ukraine demonstrated that no facility inside Russia, not an oil refinery, not a command center, not a logistics hub, is beyond reach if the flight path is planned with sufficient operational intelligence. Russia demonstrated that it will respond to deep strikes with nuclear signaling that forces Western capitals into crisis management mode, slowing weapons deliveries and fracturing NATO resolve. Both sides have found the other's pressure point. Ukraine needs ammunition faster than the West can deliver. Russia needs oil infrastructure intact faster than Ukraine's drone teams can destroy it. Somewhere in that equation is either a negotiating table or the next escalation ladder. The drones are still flying tonight. The launchers are still dispersed in the forests, and the world's most dangerous land war is entering a phase that no pre-war scenario fully anticipated. The question is not whether Russia will try the Sumy offensive again. The question is, when it does, will Ukraine have the interceptors left to stop what comes next? What do you believe? Is Ukraine's deep strike campaign a strategic masterstroke or a dangerous escalation that could push Russia toward a response no one can contain? Drop your analysis in the comments. If this tactical breakdown revealed the truth behind the headlines, hit the like button and subscribe, because the next classified file is already being declassified.